We have an unidentified flying object.
I'm Jack Osborne, and you're listening.
This is Nathan Hamane, and you're listening to...
I'm Richard C. Hoagland, and you're listening to...
I'm Art Bell, and you're listening to Dr. J Radio Live.
We have an unidentified flying object.
Welcome back to Dr. J Radio Live. I'm your host, Dr. J, broadcasting from the City of Angels or City of Demons, depending upon who you ask. And we are an international show, starting with our home base, late night in the Midlands, and the terrestrial affiliates. And also we have Black Swamp Digital Radio. And in the United Kingdom, we do have Deep Program Radio and their terrestrial affiliates in the London and Leeds. Now, today's show is a little bit different. Why? Because our guest also happens to be, he's not only comes from another nation, but he's actually live from another nation right now. If you remember a few weeks ago, when we had this last guest on, he made two predictions. And now, as a matter of fact, that first prediction was November 26th. He talked about an earthquake over the magnitude of 6.0. There happened to be two of them, so he was dead on. And of course, I know who you're talking about. I'm talking about an astrologist, the prophet, hypnotherapist, and most importantly, the friend, Dr. Louis Turi. Dr. Turi, welcome back, dear friend.
Hey, thank you very much for having me again, Dr. J. I'm glad that your audience was able to realize that my cosmic wisdom is real. And I'm going to do it again. I'm going to give you a couple dates. Whenever you're ready, I can give you those dates and tell you what's going to happen.
Well, let's go into detail first on the first date that we talked about, November 26th. Like I said before when I introduced you, you predicted there would be an earthquake somewhere in the world over the magnitude of 6.0. But there was not one, there was two that day. Let's talk about those two for a second.
Well, correct. Now, the first one was 6.0 and the second one was 6.3. And as I mentioned to you on your show again last time, you had me as a guest. I connected with the USGS, the Seismology Institute in Pasadena, NASA, and I told those guys to be ready, and I gave them two dates, and I said, be ready for earthquake above 7.0. And two of those earthquakes took place in Mexico and somewhere else. And I have a copy of the email. And I told them that I would be more than willing to work with them because if I could have the an idea of the earthquake activity, at least I have an unarguable timing, we could work together and eventually find the location. But, you know, like all scientists, they would rather be caught dead than to mention astrology, or, you know, to work with Dr. Turi, because Dr. Turi is not a geologist and doesn't have the education or whatever it is. They do not understand or realize that there is a big difference between education and intelligence. And in fact, for anybody interested in reading those email exchanges with USGS or the seismologist in Pasadena, California, all you got to do is go to drturi.com and click on earthquakes, and then you can read the dated exchange that we had. It's sad. I'm very sad about this, Dr. J, because I know I have something, and if we could work together and put the educated, egotistic pride on the side, we could help society. But it doesn't seem to work this way.
You're absolutely right, and it's a very sad thing because an earthquake alarm is what's needed. Even if someone knew, say, a minute before, or better yet, an hour before, and yet you knew days before. And the fact that you, like you said, the USGS is turning you down because of the word psychic or cosmic wisdom or astrology or things like that, because you don't have a PhD from Caltech or MIT.
Yep.
They're very hard on that side. And then, you know, what's it going to take for us to actually merge the two together? Do you see a future where the two of you, or the two of us, I'm talking about people who have cosmic intelligence and scientists, will end up working together?
They will have to. They will have to, because you're already right there. indirectly promoting me, and knowing that we are moving into the age of Aquarius, which is the age of technology, the age of originality. Scientists will be forced to honor the word science and investigate outside of their conventional accepted discipline.
It has to come down to that at some point. I would hope it would be in some time in our life. And like you said, I'm right here, speaking of Los Angeles. In a few weeks, on January 17th, it'll be the 25-year anniversary of the North Earthquake, which, depending on which newspaper you read at the time, it could be anywhere from 6.7, some say over 7.0. I think 7.0, the reason why they wanted to keep it under is, at least the conspiracy behind it, is because that also triggers a funding from the United States federal government. That didn't end up coming. But I think the president at the time did declare a national emergency. But the reason I'm bringing this up is USGS and Caltech right here in Pasadena have been talking about the big one, the so-called big one that's been coming to the United States, or specifically to California, Southern California, the San Andreas Fault. Not only has it been overdue from this recent one from the 25 years ago, the actual San Andreas Fault hasn't erupted in a couple hundred years. I believe it's 350 years, which makes it about 200 years overdue if it erupts every 150 years. Now, you were talking right before we went on air, or even at the very beginning, you do have some more predictions. What other predictions can you give us for the people coming into, I would say, the holiday season?
Well, I can tell you one thing, that this overdue earthquake will take place during one of my SOS to the world deadly windows. I can assure you that. I'm going to give you 2 dates, Dr. G. The first one is, again, I don't want to go too far, okay, because people have a short memory. We're going to go to December 19th, and that's pretty close, isn't it? That's the next tomorrow. So,
yeah.
All right, so be ready tomorrow. There is that very negative energy that will be used by the reptilians that will get someone to kill a bunch of people or produce terrorism. Gosh, I hope the FBI is not going to knock at my door again. So this energy tomorrow is all about things that are secret and sexual and hidden and very, very much oriented towards supreme wealth to come to the light. So there is definitely somebody very famous that's going to go. Maybe one or two, for that matter.
Politician or celebrity or somebody you're talking about?
Again, Dr. G, I don't want the FBI to visit me for the third time.
Yeah.
So I'm just telling you, within the next 2 or 3 days, expect somebody that has a very big name to go. Expect also secret to come to light. News from Russia, obviously, anything to do with sex, and probably a lunatic out there is going to go and shoot people, and hopefully it's not going to be a terrorist attack. That's all I could tell you, because I don't want to go into more detail, and that's clear enough. And in fact, if you go to my website, drturi.com, you can click on a very specific article that I wrote just because I knew it was going to be on your show. And it's under my pictures, and it's called "The Year Brightest Comet Strikes by Earth, a Powerful Omen Prediction for the World." So if you go to drturi.com, you can click on this link, and you're going to be able to read, as I work like Nostradamus used to do in the 16th century, using quatrain and using keywords. You can read what's going to happen on December 19th and on December 24th. Now, that is where I worry a little bit, December 24th, because that same energy that produced the Katrina when I was on George Noory in Coast to Coast, I told George to be ready for thousands of people to be forced to relocate because of natural disaster. When I mentioned that on your show, what I was referring at was the wave of people coming from South of America trying to pass the water So there was thousands and thousands of people trying to move on into the United States to start a new life. The key word for December 24 is the beginning or the end of something very, very important, not only on the political front, talking about President Trump, but also at the personal level. And again, unless you have invested $10 on your own Nostradamus Dragon forecast, you will not know how this next SOS to the world is going to affect you at the personal level. So I'm giving you those 2 days again, December 19th, death, drama, secret, sex, crazy lunatic, terrorism, these are the keywords. And December 24th, natural devastating force. And I really hope it is not a natural disaster that is overdue. That's what I can tell you for now, my dear friend, Dr. J.
Yeah, and like you mentioned earlier, you've been visited by the FBI twice. That's 2 more times than anyone else. And for those people who have not heard his last show, the reason why he was actually visited by the FBI is because he predicted what would happen on September 11th, and they came to his house and raided it. Now, I'm glad you're not giving too much information, and I would hope they can't get you where you are. Now, I did say you're international right now. I know you come from France, but you happen to be live in Mexico right now. Can you say the city, or do you not want to say that on air?
Well, I can say the city. I am currently in a city called Los Algodones. It's near Yuma in California on the Mexican border. I'm here because I'm doing some dental work, something that would cost me between $25,000 to $30,000 in the United States. I came to Mexico to do it, and I get away with $15,000. Now, a lot of people, I'm sure you heard that, a lot of people have horror stories to tell you about Mexico and their doctors. Well, let me tell you something.
Yes.
Let me tell you something. I am coming it's the second time. It's the end of that procedure they're going to do because at 69 years old, I got to replace some teeth, put it this way. Especially when I was growing up, we didn't have any hygiene. We didn't have any restroom. We didn't have any current water. We didn't have electricity. And I was eating sugar. I've never been taught to brush my teeth. I mean, it's a long story, so I paid the price by losing all of my teeth. But technology is helping me. That's good news. What I'm trying to tell you here, Dr. G, is it is a calculated risk. As you know, there are millions of people that take cruises, and the next thing you know, they end up all sick. And with a terrible stories to tell, correct?
Yes.
That is because they do not use their cosmic positive wind. They do not know. And not being taught the cosmic code jurisdiction of the laws of the divine does not emancipate you again from paying the heavy penalty. And like I said on your last show, if you remember, if you see the red light in the street, the stop sign in the street, you must respect universal law unless you want to go to jail or being killed. And again, because you did not either be curious enough of being taught universal laws or the cosmic divinity or the cosmic rules, you're going to pay the heavy price. So before I came here 6 months ago, I looked at all the stars and I picked up the best time for me, not only to travel here safely, but to land on the right doctors. And those kids here have been trained in Baja California. Many of them went to California. The location that I'm in is absolutely neat and clean. It's absolutely wonderful. I'm not going to say any name because I don't want to advertise my exact location. But what I'm trying to say to you is if you want to go to any foreign country to save money because the system is so abusive in the United States, when it comes to health, it's totally ridiculously expensive. If you want to save thousands of dollars, you need to come to Mexico. However, you better consult me first. Make sure that I sign you here, and you come back and say, "Amen, Dr. Turi. Thank you so much. I saved a lot of money, and I'm extraordinarily happy with the results." It comes down to knowledge is power, ignorance is evil.
Going to your own background, my family has a similar background. Growing up in Greece with no power, no running water, nothing, literally, just a shack, not even an outhouse. That's how poor they were, and that's the entire villages. So just like you, my mother had to actually go down to Mexico and get her teeth done a few years ago, and because of the tremendous costs here in the United States, fortunately, she came back unharmed. Early this morning, 2 a.m. Pacific time, 5 a.m. Eastern, another guest, Richard Shaw, sent me an article about a tourist from the United States that was in Mexico was killed. And the fear is because of the caravan and a lot of people that are vacationing in Mexico that may have money that these poor migrants don't, and therefore that's what the fear is about. Do you see any of that fear, or is this more propaganda?
It's more of a propaganda because I am here and I don't see any foreign people trying to jump anything to come here or to get out of the United States. This is Baja California. This is actually California, so it's actually much more west. So there is no negative activity around here. And I spoke to the guy who is dragging me around to different places and to my hotels and different places I want to go. I hired this guy, and he's telling me, Dr. Turi, this is extraordinarily safe. It is actually very, very important for the local police to keep this place free of crime. So foreign people, American people, or anybody else for that matter who needs dental work or any form of medical attention or surgery do not have to experience crimes. But again, this doesn't mean anything. You come here during the wrong time, crime will be here, because the guy told me there are times where there are crimes even here. But the police is on top of everything here because they want foreign people to keep the city working, so to speak. But there's no way around it. If you do not know when the light is green and you cross the road, you're going to get hurt. That's what it comes down to. Knowledge is power, ignorance is evil.
Well, you talked about the evil reptilians and the negative power. What can people do to come to the light and protect themselves from this negativity?
Well, first of all, I didn't approach that in your last show. I guess it isn't enough time. But the reptilians can invade the womb of a pregnant mother before the birth. Let's say a young mother is having fun. She drinks a lot. She smokes. She takes pot. She does all sorts of things that she's not supposed to do. And then she goes to bed and she sleeps and she has horrible nightmare. The next thing you know, she gives birth to a child that happens to have like trisomy 21, mosaic Down syndrome. This is not inherited. This is not inherited. This means that the reptilians are able to add chromosome, to remove chromosome, as much as the draconians are able to do that too. By gifting people with all sorts of abilities. So, science is still wondering why and what Down syndrome is all about. They're going to give you their rational explanation, yes, this, yes, that, but it is much deeper than what they could even accept or even conceive, for that matter. So it is very, very important for any young mother to make sure, at least during the pregnancy, to live a healthy life, because that child may appear absolutely beautiful, absolutely healthy, and the next thing you know, when this child gets maturity, around 12, 13, 14, 16 years old, that's where the legacy of the reptilians will start to show. So it's very important, as I said earlier, for any young mother that is pregnant, not to mess up with drugs, alcohol, and the reptilians. Now, again, the reptilians also use technology. I don't know if you heard, but I wrote a newsletter not long ago This newsletter is about a new technology. It's actually a Swedish company. It's called Emotra. They created a device called EDOR, E-D-O-R. And that device is supposed to measure the risk of suicide with people suffering mental illness. Okay. Now, this technology is there, but you cannot measure or deal with the spirit using technology. You just can't. It's perfect to measure the density of your eyes, your heart palpitation. Is absolutely phenomenal, especially when it comes to do X-ray. On the physical level, science has produced tremendous, remarkable results to improve health in so many levels. It's absolutely wonderful. But again, when it comes to the spirit, you have to be very careful. Now, let me tell you this little story that this little kid, that was on Facebook, I think a few months ago. Mm-hmm. This little kid got a prank. Somebody told him that his little girlfriend committed suicide through the internet. The next thing you know, this 10 or 14-year-old kid go and hang himself.
Oh, Lord.
This is serious. The reptilians will use anything that is electronics to disturb the natural brain functions. Okay, there is example even affect the animals. I mean, it's a fact. The animal attacks currently cost the United States more than $1 billion a year, and they are becoming much more common. Animals, dogs, even cats. Do you know why? Because those animals, first of all, have an hearing process which is so much more refined than our hearing. They can hear things when the TV is all the way up and very loud. They can still hear somebody in the street. I don't know if you notice that with your dog, if you have a dog. Okay? So the hearing is extremely sensitive. Now, those animals are constantly bombarded by electronic devices, telephone, cell phone, and that is going to the head. Not to mention, of course, the food, the pet food that they eat is, most of all, this is not to be trusted. You got to be careful what you feed your pet. So it's pretty much like humans. All those corporations want is money. It's money, and they don't care. And sad enough, a lot of pets have paid the ultimate price and died in the process. I'm telling you, the reptilians will use absolutely anything in order to get to you. And if you go, for example, to Facebook, you're going to see the real effect of the reptilians, because 3/4 of the people out there on Facebook, they go there just to vent out their anger, their insecurity, they have an inferiority complex, they have a superiority complex, God knows what. And then after a while, you could see all the people that are addicted to technology as imposed by the reptilians. These people get depressed, they get upset, and they do all stupid things that they would not do otherwise. There are people that have a very solid marriage. The next thing you know, they start a conversation with a guy that is able to manipulate a sensitive, emotional woman. The next thing you know, through her, this manipulator, this infected soul, which is like a vampire, sucks the energy of the whole woman, and then it would go to the point of even taking money from her husband's bank account to support this guy or his children or God knows what this guy is doing out there. So you got to be very, very cautious. I mean, the full proof of the reptilians and manipulation is obvious with the Russian hijacking the 2016 election.
And speaking of technology and cyberbullying, which is a huge problem, as you mentioned, a lot of people these days, I mean, I don't want to put a percentage, but there's a good portion of people that are able to hide behind the computer and say what they want. And as you mentioned with that young kid who hanged himself literally because of what he heard from his girlfriend, that goes again down to the dangers of technology in general. And I'm glad you opened up this point, Dr. Turi, about technology, people addicted to technology. We essentially have become slaves to our technology. It is now driving the human race versus the human race dividing or driving technology. And this can go back to automobiles. First, you have a car that's available. You can get somewhere further, somewhere faster, but then all of a sudden you had to have car insurance, and all these regulations and laws were put in place. And argument can be made all the way to cell phones. People can literally flip out and feel naked, so-called naked, if they leave their home without their smartphone. And why do you think that's actually caused by the negativity coming from the reptilians?
Yeah, but it goes both ways. You have to understand also the advantage of technology. You got to keep it in balance. There are people that would rather spend all day on Facebook and degenerate by fighting with everybody to get rid of their frustration. They're spending time in their home, on their carpet, on their wood floor. They do not connect with Mother Earth. They don't take their shirt out of their body and then get some vitamin D from the sun. They completely have ignored Mother Earth. They're disconnected. They're totally disconnected. And that affected their mental, physical, and spiritual health. But at the same time, you cannot just, throw the water with the baby. You have to understand also that technology is a formidable tool that can help if it's used appropriately. But the reptilians are there to make sure you use it the wrong way. As far as the draconics helping someone to create a program to make an airplane much more safer, or a navigational system, would it be on the shuttle or a ship? Doesn't matter. These are definitely very progressive and very positive effects. But you need to understand, as I mentioned again in your previous show, the reptilians cannot survive in this dense physical world with positivity. In fact, again, there is something that NASA just put up on one of their article about the dark matter, and I wrote about it. I wrote about it, and it's in my website. If you go again to drturi.com and click on my blog, you can read that those reptilians lives in dark matter, and in no way NASA scientists will tell you, that they are the first one. They're embarrassed. They tell you that astrophysicists, they are the first one to admit that their best theoretical model can only explain 5% of the universe, of the working of the universe. The remaining 95% is made up entirely of invisible, unknown material, dark energy, dark matter. Okay, and this article is called "Bizarre Dark Fluid with Negative Mass Could Dominate the Universe." It just came out, and then that's what I'm trying to say. It's becoming more and more obvious that the reptilians who live in dark matter need to maintain this dark matter, and 95% of the universe is dark matter. So it fits perfectly the reptilians' agenda, which are very subtle in their activity. So again, go to Dr. Turi and read all that I wrote about dark matter and how the reptilians operate through dark matter. This is too far-fetched for so many people, Dr. Jean, to assimilate, to comprehend, or even to accept. The reptilian phenomenon is the age of every single thing out there. Now, you do have a lot of talking heads from various grounds, speakers from everywhere that tells you that the reptilians affect only the rich, the powerful, and worse, they'll tell you that the Queen of England is going to turn into a reptilian or a snake or whatever, or President Obama or whomever that has named
Bush.
power would turn into a reptilian.
George Bush is what they were always saying would turn into a reptilian.
Yeah. No, this is totally insane and ridiculous. No, nobody's going to turn into a reptilian in a physical manner. Most of all, every one of us, as mentioned again, I repeat myself because repetition very often and sad enough is the only way people are going to understand something that is so mystical and so deep. Every one of us is infected. Okay, if you drink too much, you don't have the same reasoning power. Now, if emotion takes over your logic and you're bound to do something stupid, if you take too much legal drug, let's say antidepressant or painkiller, and you drive, you are under the jurisdiction of the reptilians. The next thing you know, you're going to kill a bunch of people on the highway. So what I'm trying to tell you that every one of us to a certain level is infected, and it's only by keeping a very, very positive attitude, by understanding the phenomenon and fighting this negativity, that you will become a very serious help to the draconists, which are fighting since forever the reptilians who want this beautiful piece of real estate that we call Earth. Basically, it's all up. Go ahead.
No. I thought you were finishing on that thought. I was just going to say about, we were talking about the legal drugs. Big pharmaceuticals are a huge moneymaker. And those billionaires that have those shares that run things like Pfizer or other of those companies, I wonder if they are more affected with reptilians, or if they themselves are reptilians in nature, because they're trying to essentially take over the world. And just like you said earlier, one of the side effects of this new technology you were talking about, I believe you said in Switzerland, was it? If the side effect is suicide, really? Are you going to take something that the side effect is suicide? That's a very, very scary thing. Anyway, proceed what you were saying about the draconists, because that is obviously the ones, or the group that is fighting the reptilians.
Right. Well, you have to understand this new technology, or this article about dark matter, and this new technology that they want to put in every hospital and every places. It's very, very dangerous, because now the draconists are going to jump into the technology, and they're going to make people even more weird by being bombarded by technology that they don't need. And this technology was developed in Europe, and it's going to be selling primarily in England and Germany. I spent myself with 11 or 12 years in the UK. You never, ever see the sun, Dr. J. It's very depressive. It rains all the time. And same with north of Europe or Germany. So it's not surprising that this type of technology wants to be sold all over Europe, because it's negative, it's depressive, and more people in Europe are subject to depression and reptilian infestation because of the weather. Again, they do not go out. They do not take their shirt off and regenerate their body from the sun. They don't have enough vitamin D. They're not connecting with Mother Earth. It's too cold. It's raining. It's negative. Everybody's depressed. They drink crazy. That's why at 10 o'clock at night, the UK government is just locking up all the bars, because English people would drink crazy just to forget the hell they're in. I'm telling you, I was a bar manager in a 5-star hotel in Eastbourne in Sussex in England for many years. And I couldn't believe how the Brits, the Scotch, can drink so much just to forget reality. I didn't know nothing about the reptilians during those days. I was only like, I don't know, maybe 25, 26 years old, so long ago, 1976. But I was amazed. Why are these people drinking so much to the point that they're going to pass out? And many of them, had accident and died in the process. And that's why the rates of suicide is just totally out of order. Now, in the United States, in the West Side, okay, right here in California, in Arizona, some parts of Mexico, even Dallas, Texas, there is some on the West Side. There is some. So the only way people are going to infect it will be because the access to drugs or alcohol is also much too easy. And then the reptilians will definitely override their psyche. They won't be able to rationalize or apply any form of critical thinking because the drugs are either legal or illegal. So I'm telling you, this new technology was developed in Europe and will be sold in Europe primarily because of the weather, which induces a hell of a lot of drinking, drugs, and depression. Make sense again?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, that's what a lot of people say about Seattle, Washington area, because of the darkness, the rain, the gray, just like you mentioned when you were living in the UK. A lot of people resort to drugs. And I think the suicide rate, I believe, and don't quote me if I'm wrong, but I believe is higher in that area because of that. And when you mentioned something good, people do need vitamin D. If we were to go back 200 years and remove these big pharmaceutical companies and all these other things that would have destroyed people, everybody had to go outside. If you didn't have a horse, you would use your own 2 feet, or a horse
Exactly.
or a bug, right? But like you said, people can now sort of sit indoors on a computer, and yet if the weather also, if they do go outside and if the weather's always in a bad way, then that can affect their mood too. So not only is it affecting their body with a lack of vitamin D, it can affect their mood, which sort of leads to depression. Now, what can you tell people that they can do to snap out of that so they can, like you said, think positive thoughts, and that's a major thing to do.
Right. Again, Dr. G, there is a French proverb that said misery is always better in the sun. I mean, if you're going to be harmless, I would rather be in Phoenix under a bridge than in New York under the freaking snow and ice. Does that make sense again?
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
What I'm trying to tell you, it all depends on your astro-cartography. Astro-cartography is a system that was developed by Jim Lewis, like they developed the cosmic code biorhythm, positive and negative, which is the latest astrological discovery. It's not yet known by a lot of people, but it works, believe me. Jim Lewis developed astro-cartography. Astro-cartography is pointing out a very specific planet that is above your head in various parts of the world. So let me give you this example. When I was in England, I was under the jurisdiction of the toughest, most depressive planet of all. I was under the jurisdiction of Saturn, which is called in Greek mythology the Great Malefic. Now, Saturn does not reward anybody overnight. You have to work years. In my case, 11 years. Otherwise, I was music. Now I play piano. And the good news is that the Saturn's rewards will last a lifetime. Now, I had to work 3 jobs when I was in the UK. And the reason why I mention UK is because I know you have a very large audience out there. And I just love the English people. I got so many British friends, ridiculous. I love those guys. And especially the girls, because I was young and wild. All right. Now, Saturn forced me to work 3 jobs. I was working at a Rumble Belly, a restaurant, until about 1:30 in the morning. From there, I had to walk maybe a couple miles, maybe more, to St. Mary's Hospital, where I was working as a switchboard operator. And then when somebody was dying, of course, I worked at the mortuary. So I was actually having 3 jobs, so I could pay my study, I could pay my musicians, I could do all that I wanted to do, and I succeeded. I actually was a recording artist. I got my first contract by Philips Phonogram in Paris, and then I brought all this to United States EMI in Los Angeles, and they wanted to give me another contract, but I turned everything down because I was under a very different star. Now, I moved away from the negative, dark, overworking, disciplinarian, black Saturn, the negative, depressive energy to the United States. I didn't know. I moved under the sun. Now, from the dark, hard-working karmic Saturn, I moved under the sunlight. When you move under the sun, not only the sun regulates anything to do with love, light, health, fame, and anything that I touched when I moved in California literally turned gold. So that's called astro-cartography. So if you, for example, want to sell your house and you want to move, this is probably one of the most important investing, buying or selling a house. It's an important act. If you're going to relocate and you're a negative stars, you're going to pay the price. Again, you need to know what type of major universal energy you have above your head, because you can have the best chart in the world. If that planet above your head is negative, you're gonna have to suffer. And what I'm talking, not just for the sake of talking, Dr. J, I'm talking because I have experience. I've been living in England. I've been living in Germany. I've been living in Asia. I've been living in Switzerland. I've been living in the United States. I've been living in California, Arizona. So I can tell you by tracing back to the future, so to speak, by tracing all that my wisdom to all those planets above your head. It's very important to know what's going on above your head. And then if you have a very strong Saturn, for example, regardless of what you do, you're going to get depressed and you're going to be working your ass off. Excuse my French. If you are under a Pluto line, you're going to get some gas. Next thing you know, somebody is going to put a gun on your head and ask for your wallet. And if you refuse, you're dead. If you're under Mars, for example, the Lord of War, the Lord of Danger, you're going to become very aggressive, and then you might break a couple bones because you're driving too fast. If you're under Venus, on the other hand, you're going to become much more magnetic and much more creative. If you're under the planet Uranus, all of a sudden you're going to be interested with UFO and attract the divine and attract anything and everything that dwells with the divine, and that includes astrology. You're going to be weird. You're going to be futuristic. You're going to be like Dr. Turi, okay? Because I have a very strong Aquarius energy. I was born in February. So there is a variation of all planets that are literally dictating the energy that is above your head, which will be either positively or negatively used, either by the reptilians or the draconis. And remember, the draconis are the gardeners of the world. They are there to give you ideas, to bring creation, to help you to move forward. You cannot only look at the day, you also have the night. Or you cannot look at the male, you also have a female. Up and down, black and white, got devil, yin and yang, positive, negative. So we want to stay objective and understand that the more cosmic knowledge you have, the more control over your destiny you will have. And sudden enough, in the name of religion, in the name of skepticism, atheism, you're missing the boat. And that's what I'm all about. I'm trying to explain to people there's much more than what you guys can see, believe me.
You mentioned being in certain places and obviously how that would affect you, for instance, the different planets that would be affecting that area. Like you mentioned, right. The sun here in the United States or Saturn in the United Kingdom. But time is also relevant, isn't it, Dr. Turi, as far as the month of the year that you choose to do something or time of day?
Well, time is important because it dictates the universal imprint you have. As I said, karmically, when you reincarnate yourself on this dense physical world, you choose your country, you choose your parents, you choose your stars. you choose. When I say you choose, is that before you reincarnate, when you have a direct connection with the divine and with God, when you are a God, because you're being made in the image of God. What I'm trying to tell you is you may be related to your mom and your dad, and your kids may look like you. However, they are the biggest strangers because they're never going to think, behave, or create or have the same fate that you have. And this brings me again for your audience to understand the importance of electing a president and knowing his UCI, or his unique celestial identity. I want to repeat myself about our president. President Trump was born with the tail of the dragon, which is a Saturnian, a negative energy, into the sign of Sagittarius. Sagittarius rules and controls anything that has to do with foreign land, foreign affairs, and foreigners. In the name of his stars, knowing that President Trump happens to be the most powerful man in the world because he is in charge of the most powerful country in the world, everybody in the world will have to suffer his fate. Or, for example, this little 3 or 4 year old girl that died on the border, or all these kids that were separated from their parents for weeks at a time, and some died again. All these people that are fleeing Bolivia, Central America, trying to come to the United States. It is not an accident for this to happen. It is all steered by the president's stars, because we the people, are going to suffer the stars and the fate of a president. So if a president has negative stars, with politics, with anything that is control and power, such as Hitler. Hitler was born with the tail of the dragon in Capricorn. By the way, Capricorn rules England, and that's why England is a very depressive, structure, controlling country, so to speak. And so knowing that Hitler was born with the tail of the dragon in Capricorn, giving Hitler political power means is literally what happened to the rest of the world, because the German people were not cosmic conscious. And who actually destroyed Germany is actually England when you look at it. Let's say, for example, I could trace time and space, and Hitler hired me as his astrologer. And by the way, he had astrologers, and he killed a few of them because they could not guide him properly. Okay, it's a zero waste of time. Had that been working for Hitler, I would have said to Hitler, my friend, right now, I want you to concentrate and put more and every single German people in invading England. And he was that close. And he would have said, why? I said, because your tail is in Capricorn, and if you're going to fail in your drive to control the world, it'll be because of England. But Hitler was not cosmic conscious, and his astrologers were jerks. They were not cosmic conscious. It is absolutely incredible to be aware of those energies and stop being skeptical or thinking you're going to go to hell because you're dealing with Dr. Turi. Make sense again?
Yeah. And speaking of hell, the Catholic Pope, I believe, said that there is no hell. I don't remember how many months ago at this point. You mentioned what obviously the UK, what is being guided by, and what Adolf Hitler, and he was very big in astrology at the time. And like you said, he did kill off a lot of those prophets that didn't work in his favor. Rudolf Hess, one of the top, I don't know what his position was in the Third Reich, used astrology to go to England and to try to get a sort of a peace treaty, and ended up being arrested. And I know the time that he flew, the time that he chose to fly on his own was based on astrology. And was wrong. Now, using what you just said about President Trump and the caravan not being an accident, let's go back to a couple of the other presidents. So George W. Bush, for instance, 9/11 happening on his watch. Do you think that part of that reason that it happened was because of the time he was born in, that month of the year?
150%. But again, that would have to be for another show, because explaining the UCI would take time, and then I would have to come up with some rational, logical information about President Bush and even his dad, for that matter.
Yes.
All I can tell you is there is millions and millions of people who share the same dragon tail as President Trump. To use mathematics, a magnet will attract a piece of wood. These people are the ones that, like Trump, hate foreigners, fear foreigners' invasion. And why do I know that? Because my best friend was born in June, like Trump. Mm-hmm. And he was born the same year than President Trump. And he's the first one to endorse and support and promote Trump every single day, every single chance he gets. He is born a racist. But that doesn't mean he's a bad guy, because he's my best friend. But I understand him. And because I understand him, it allows me to acknowledge, maybe excuse his sins, because I want to see only his virtues. But I understand him. So if everybody were taught the Cosmic Code secret, they would understand why people do what they do. And then that would create less animosity, more understanding, and an opportunity, of course, in the process to correct that nasty energy coming from their chart. It's all about education. But in reference to astrology, Dr. G, every single disappeared civilization used the star, particularly Egypt. Now, I don't know if I should say that on the air, but I'm going to take a chance. A lot of people are going to hate me. And again, people will love you if you make them think, Dr. G. You know that. But yes, if you make them think, really think, like the way I do, they're going to hate you, because now you're forcing them out of their little box. So let's talk about Egypt. Let's go back a few thousand years. Okay. Now, all the priests during those days were cosmic conscious. In other words, they knew as much as I know today. And they were infected. They were greedy. Obviously, they were very close to the Pharaoh. And much of the Pharaoh never really lived long. Some of them died really young. 19, 15, some 25, some 30. They didn't live long. And what do you know? Let's be honest. When you're 20 years old, when you're 15 years old, you know nothing.
You don't have life experience. You're young.
That's what I'm trying to say. Now, you're dealing. Now, those Pharaoh had a lot of money, had a lot of power. It's all greed. So those priests knew the UCI of some of these Pharaoh, and many of them were born into the sign of Leo, to be on the throne, to be thrown into so much fame. They knew they had to have a very strong Leo. And when you own a very strong Leo power and you rule by the sun, you have a subconscious fear of death and decay. So they said, okay, you know what we're going to do here? We have the power, we have the knowledge. This little kid here is afraid of death, and obviously, in the next life, he wants to be as much, famous and as much powerful and live forever whatsoever. So they made up what you call their own code, so to speak, which is birds, which is very normal, very, very simple drawing. There is nothing mystical. It's just something that those priests were manipulating the very wealthy and powerful kid, the very wealthy, powerful Pharaoh, to keep their position, and the money and the power that those priests had. In fact, the priests always had more power than the Pharaoh. And you know what the priests do? You can just trace back in Christianity, see what all the priests did to the children. They freaking rape them. Right or not?
Yeah,
do you understand what I'm saying? Now,
The
let's talk
priests
the
had
truth.
power. The priests had a lot of power. back
Exactly.
then. And the literacy
Yeah, and then of course
amongst them was actually
Yeah.
much higher than the common man and woman.
So by making these kids, the pharaoh, very powerful, wealthy pharaoh, giving him hope that he will bring all this beautiful life and all this power in the next level, so to speak, and bury him with all this artifact and all this gold and all that stuff, to be taken out by the same very priest later on, that's a fact. That might be Egyptologists will not tell you, but the biggest tomb that stole all these artifacts were priests, because they knew where the pharaoh were buried. So they were going there before anybody else and taking all the. It's all greed. It's all infected by the reptilians. So what I'm trying to tell you here, it's like in my case, I was counseling some of the most powerful, wealthy people in my life. I've never seen so much money, so much power, being dragged around on their private plane and so forth. And I'm going to tell you something again, because I think you know, we're not saying the truth, okay? We're not saying what it really is, so that the audience can really, really realize that I am real. I'm so real that even my email is Turi true. You know, when people write an email address, it tells you a lot about that person, what people wear, how they express themselves, what they drive. It's all a subconscious message. What is so people haven't been trained to detect omens or detect those subconscious messages. Let me tell you something. During the days, one of my best friends came in my house, and he says to me, Louis, I'm going to introduce you to a very, very powerful man. Guy is a billionaire. We're going to come with his on a plane, land in San Diego. We're going to come to you. He just warned me. I said, okay. That's all he told me. Next thing you know, here comes this guy in my house, dressed with a little shirt and a little Levi's, and he goes, hey, Dr. Turi, I heard a lot of things from your friend. I'd like to see if that is real. I said, yeah, well, test me. He said, okay, well, tell me something. And I look at him and I said, were you born in September? And you look at my friend and he said, did you tell him my birthday? He says, no, absolutely not. So that was the first thing that really scared him. And I said to him, look, you were born in September. I was born, I'm a Pisces, you're a Virgo. Right now, the head and the tail is in Pisces, Virgo axis. That means you and I, we're going to go through a divorce. He says, oh my gosh. He reached in the back of his pocket and he showed me the divorce paper that he picked up on his desk before he flew to San Diego. And he was quite impressed. He said, wow, that's very impressive. Then he says to me, is there anything else you could tell me, Dr. Turi? Is to tell you the power of the stars and the power you have over people when you have such a knowledge, and how important it is to have integrity and to be honest. Because the stars don't care. They're going to make a criminal very, very successful, or a drug dealer very successful. Okay? And I want to make the FBI successful, not the drug lord. What I'm trying to tell you is, he goes, okay, tell me something else that nobody knows. I said to him, do you have stitches on your head? He says, oh my God, what are you talking about? I said, I just know your 8th house of death is in Aries. Aries was the head, and you're prone to headaches, sinuses, or stitches on your head. He says, all of the above, Dr. Turi. You're really, really impressive. Man, he told me that when he was in college, he had a fight with some guys, and one of the guys got a baseball and cracked his skull. And that made his entire left side totally insensitive. He didn't feel anything. All right. So he was impressed. He says, okay, now, Dr. Turi, the $1 million question. The $1 million question. I said, okay. And then he struck the hell out of me. He goes, how am I going to die?
Ooh.
I looked at him and I said, do you really want to know? He said, yes. I said, you're going to die twice. He looked at me and he says, you know what, Dr. Turi, I really had faith in you. But right now, you just totally lost me. But anyway, he was so curious. He was so curious that he says, you convinced me. It was his birthday. He was about 50 years old. He owned a very private island. So he invited me, and he invited a rabbi. And he says to me, see if you can convert a rabbi. Okay, so we were working, the three of us, on the beaches. And after 10 minutes, I said to the rabbi, were you born in October? The rabbi looked at me and says, oh my gosh, how do you know? I said, I'm just telling you. The next thing you know, I explained to him that the Jews, before they become all, schizophrenic against the wall, they were the first one that was actually teaching astrology. And that was, of course, taken from the Arabs. And this is why the Arabs have the star and the moon and the star on their flag. So they were very, very spiritual, those people in those days, before they fall into religion imposed by the reptilians. So, and then everywhere I was lecturing, would it be in Dallas, would it be in New York, would it be in California, this very powerful man always was there. And then one day he says to me, Louis, how much do you want? I said, what are you talking about? 5, 10, 15, 20,000 a week, a month? What do you want? I said, you know what, my friend? I'm not here for your money. I have integrity. I want to help you. But I also have a lot of people that I have to take care of, and I cannot be with you anymore. I mean, I'm not a gold digger, Yes. So next thing you know, I kind of separate myself from him and did my stuff, and now and then he was calling me and this and that. And one day, on Christmas Day, and we are close to Christmas, and I thought it was a perfect time to tell you something that I'd never said on the air before, but on your show. It was Christmas, okay? And so it's a bit hard for me to say that because I was very close to the man. He's dead now, obviously. He says to me, Louis, you're the first one I'm going to call and say goodbye. And I said, Larry, what are you talking about? He says, I can forgive other people, but I can't forgive myself. See, Larry was that type of guy. You tell him something, he never forgot. In fact, doing one of these presentations to open a new bank, he had me on stage and he introduced me to 1,500 people in the ballroom. He says, my best friend, Dr. Turi. And guess what? Dr. Turi, I told him only once that I was playing piano. Dr. Turi's going to play piano. And next thing you know, there's a big curtain that raised up behind me and there was a big, huge grand piano. Imagine if I was lying and I couldn't play piano. He actually was that type of guy. And then when he saw me playing Primavera 1 by Beethoven, Mozart, he actually had more trust than ever because I was able to prove to him that I was not a liar. And I had his entire trust. Now, coming back to that Christmas day, Christmas Eve, the 24th.
What year was this?
I can't remember, about 10 years ago.
Okay.
Something like that. I got a call from him saying to me, goodbye, Louis. In other words, he was going to commit suicide. Oh. And I knew I had to take him seriously because he was born with the tail of the dragon in Scorpio, which is a sign of death, affecting his third house, which is his mental process. So there are people that are naturally set to die, to blow up their head, so to speak, and they have no fear of death. It's just so deep. The stars control their psyche. So I said, Larry, listen, I'm going to jump in the plane. I'm coming, and then we're going to discuss it. He says, don't you bother, Louis. I love you. And he just hung up on my face. And I knew he was going to, commit suicide. I knew, and I felt powerless. I felt guilty. Next thing you know, but I don't know, now an hour and a half later, his attorney, which was my friend, called me and says, hey, Louis, I have bad news for you. I said, I know, yes. So what happened? He said, well, Larry went in his garage. He laid down on the floor. He put his big rifle in his mouth and he pulled the trigger.
Wow.
Okay, now listen to this. He blew up the left side of his brain, the side who doesn't feel anything. And he says to me, nobody understands how he did it, that he walked to his bedroom, he got his magnum, and he shoot himself on the other side. My prediction came to pass. He actually killed himself
twice. He died twice.
Yeah, imagine my dear friend, and God bless his soul. I love the man to this day, okay? Imagine him walking, say, damn you, Louis, I'm dying, and you are right. I'm killing myself twice. Imagine that. His very last thought was for me, and I felt like a freaking dynamite when he did that. I knew when he was doing it. So we are very close to December 24th, which is the anniversary of my dear friend Larry's death by suicide, something I knew he was going to do. And I predicted it dead on, twice. I didn't give him the details, but I was objective because that's the best way for me to be sometimes. So I wanted to share that with you and to your audience to understand the power those stars have over people's psyche. If you are not cosmic conscious, you are nothing else than a robot of your stars. Not only a robot of your stars, but your stars which are going to be manipulated by the reptilians. And this guy, Larry, was obviously infected to the core. He was trying to forget about his divorce. He had 3 kids. The 3 of them were drug addicts, never worked a day of their life, just living with his money. He felt like he was a failure, and he was taking a lot of antidepressants, something I always told him not to touch. He was on top of the world as long as I was with him. And the day I left him, because, I had to do things. I had clients, I had students, I had my life to lead. That's why he went spiraling down, so to speak.
This, antidepressants that you said, again, this goes back to what we were talking about earlier, the fact that this is crazy. Doctors prescribe antidepressants to people who are depressed, yet a lot of these antidepressive drugs say antidepressants, the side effect is suicide. So it's like, wait a second, that's like, having someone who's already suicidal and giving them a loaded 45 and saying, here you go. It just doesn't make sense why they would create something that could affect your mind that way. Dr. Turi, when we were talking about all the clients that you've had and some of these big billionaires and very rich and powerful people, from the last show, there was something that you said of one of your clients that people have been asking me to ask you about, and I've figured now is a good time. I know you work with Gary Busey, but more importantly, the people that are more, I guess, because of President Trump, they wanted to know how long you've been working for Ivanka Trump, and you've been her personal astrologist and prophet.
No. Let's take the fact. I was very, very surprised when she called me and said, Dr. Turi, I need to have a reading, and I said, okay, who are you? And then she goes, I'm Ivanka Trump. I'm the ex-wife of Mr. Trump. That was well before he was a president. So she was not a regular. She just called me once, and I did a reading for her. Pretty much like, what's the name of this very famous actor? He's on television. No, Gary. Gary is a very close friend. This guy who says, are you in a good hands? It's a black American, very famous actor. He's on television in every channel. And the famous phrase that he has is, are you in a good hands? I can't remember his name now.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. He used to be in 24, or not 24. The point is he is also doing the Allstate commercials, if I'm not mistaken.
Exactly. No, yeah. You got it. And I forgot his name. Because when I channel, I cannot be rational sometimes. But the same with him. Most of the time, these people talk to each other. The next thing you know, I have a celebrity at the end of my phone. But as far as regular steady people, I have Gary Busey, and other people that I cannot mention because I promised that I would keep it private. But what I'm trying to tell you, Gary, Gary is a very famous guy. He's been in so many movies, and suddenly enough, he did a hell of a drugs because when you are in this environment, you have to take pills to be on the set in Africa, in Australia, in Japan, in Europe the next day. So you need cocaine to get moving, to go to the party and all night. Then you need the same type of medication to go to sleep. And there goes again the sad reality with Michael Jackson, who died because he couldn't have control over his life, so to speak. So Gary took a lot of drugs to the point where he had an accident and the reptilians tried to kill him. Luckily,
overdose,
he survived.
Accidental overdose?
No. Well, no. He was riding a bike and he nearly died because he cracked his head. And that's why he's always endorsing people. You only have you're here between you and the car, you and the highway. So that's why he says you need to wear a helmet. So he's been a fierce fighter for security. Gary and I, it's just amazing. I just wonder how people can handle fame. I mean, I was on my boat with him on the lake, in the middle of the lake. It was a Wednesday afternoon. I said, we're not going to be bothered here. Nobody's going to bother. Guess what? There were 3 guys on their own boat, and those 3 guys were Marines. Okay, and they were on the lake at the same time that we were, and the 3 of them recognized Gary, and they literally ran after us and stopped us to get his autograph. So it's amazing. That's why you have to be cautious. If you don't have the stars, let's say you don't have a strong Leo in your chart, which means you strive for ego, you strive for the fame, your karma and your lesson is to learn popularity, you are gifted with anything, music, acting, dancing, God knows what. You're meant to be famous because you have the power of the sun in you. If you don't have this energy and you land on fame, you're going to be a very, very poor person because maybe you're extraordinarily private, very secretive, and all of a sudden you find yourself thrown in the limelight, and next thing you know, you're going to blow up your head. And this is very often what happens. You got to have the stars to be famous. You have to have the stars to be a mathematician, or anything else for that matter. You don't become proficient in a very specific area of the human experience by accident. You're being laid by your stars, and the reptilians are watching every move you make and every mistake you make, so they can hijack your body, your mind, and your soul, and next thing you know, either kill other people or blow up your head. I mean, how many very famous people end up their lives by hanging themselves or killing themselves or overdose? Dr. G, I can't count them. I cannot count them. And you see all these people running to Hollywood trying to get fame. You better look at your stars before anything that you want to do, because the universal code might have a very different plan for you. And because your will, or the part of God in you, is much stronger than the stars, by applying your will, you can lead yourself to do something that you're not supposed to do. The next thing you know, you're not going to live long. You're going to experience a very early death.
Let me ask you this, because this is something that other people wanted to know in the past, is we talked about the reptilians and, of course, the negative energy they bring. And they want, like you said, this beautiful real estate that we call home Earth. And we have the guardians, Draconis. And you've also had your own experiences with extraterrestrials where you've had contact. You told me that time that when you were in France with your brother or your sister that one time, and also another time with your brother. Do you remember which kind of extraterrestrials were involved in that, or did they fall into any of these categories, or were they another set?
Oh, yes. My first experience when I was 7 years old was the Grey, the dignified robots.
Yes.
Those, as I said, those who catch the cow and fly the saucers, those who are doing the manual work. Then you have the second experience was with my sister, and those tall blonde, the Nordics, or the management, so to speak. Some people call them the men in black, so to speak. So I've seen those inside the flying saucers when I was abducted above Los Angeles with my wife when they took the baby. That is the third one. But the most obvious one is when with my older brother Joe in the south of France, we had the flying saucers like 35 feet suspended above the brand new Mercedes that literally died in the middle of the vineyard. This I could not see who was inside the flying saucer because we were abducted, but we don't remember anything. We were at the bar, both of us smoking and drinking scotch, trying to find out where the hell we went. What was that going on with us? We were in a state of shock. So I have been touched directly by the reptilians and by the Nordics, the tall blondes, what you call the management.
Now, you are a hypnotherapist. Have you done any self-hypnosis to figure out exactly what happened with that time between you and your brother when it stopped the car, which is a very common theme?
No, there is no hypnotherapy to do as far as the experience is concerned, because it was very real and very, very solid. And for some reason, I was not able to regress myself. I did auto-hypnotize myself to stop smoking when I was smoking many years ago. I was able to do that pretty easily, so to speak. But no, when it comes to this experience, the only time I was regressed successfully is by these top two professional hypnotherapists in Victorville in California, and that was taped. That was on television. I still have the tape. So there, for some reason, with my sister and with my brother, there's no way that I can go and regress myself on my own. I might need some help.
It's
but
like
I don't think I want to know.
They block those memories on purpose. They have the ability for
that.
Oh
yeah. But one thing again, I don't know. The latest experience that I had is with Draco when that entity came through my brain, so to speak, and exit through my heart. And I mean, you've seen those orbs on my website. Yes. I mean, there's no way you can make up a series of orbs, coming from far away from me, and you see the progression through each pictures, entering my third eye and exiting my heart. I mean, you cannot make things up like this. Okay, it's very, very obvious, especially with the legacy, with the ability to make predictions. And I gave you again a couple dates for the next few days. We see where we're at. Earlier you mentioned antidepressants. I think that brought to my mind the Antichrist. A lot of people are wondering about the Antichrist. Some people think, well, it's George Bush, it's Obama, it's Hitler, it's Trump, or God knows what. Antichrist is every one of us, particularly me. Let's go to the basics. Christ is a representation of love, light, peace, progress, spirituality, the light, the love, the universal beauty of Christ, the Savior. Okay, Antichrist means somebody which is anti all the reptilians. Okay, but at the same time, as the reptilians need negativity or the opposite of Christ, the reptilians in the process created all the religion and took away the true cosmic ministry of Jesus, which was to introduce humanity to our Father in the heavens. In other words, Jesus was talking to the 12 apostles, and the essence of the 12 apostles end up is the 12 signs of the zodiac, 12 months of the year, 12 hours of the day, the 12 sins, the 12 jury, the 12 Tower of Israel, the 12 months of music, etc. So what I'm trying to tell you, you right now, tonight, are an anti-Christ, so to speak, because now you are, as much as you promote the truth, the value, the beauty of our Savior, our Jesus, okay, you are now fighting organized religion, which is the manipulation and changing the Christ cosmic ministry to religion. Now, as you know, would it be cults like Scientology, Mormonism, Witness of Jehovah, God knows what? These are cults. These were produced by the reptilians, so that separation through organized various religions produced chaos. All the while, the true ministry of Jesus and the 12 apostles, or the 12 signs of the zodiac, dedicated and designed by the Savior himself to introduce his Father or God cosmic divinity to us, has been lost. That's pretty deep stuff. Can you relate to it?
Yeah, absolutely, and does make sense what you're talking about, organized religions, especially when you mentioned Scientology. And I hope they don't hear this. David Miscavige hears this, because that would definitely come bearing down. They have a lot of money and a lot of power to go after people who talk against them. Even Jehovah's Witness is now, or recognized as being something similar to the Scientology. Leah Remini, who is doing her show about Scientology, even did a segment on the Jehovah's Witness and how essentially they take over your life in every aspect that it can be taken over. And if you try to leave it, well, they're going to make your life a living hell on this planet. That's for darn sure.
And what do they do to the children? They rape the kids, like the priests have done, like they did with the Pharaoh, like they did with Christianity most of the time, in the name of Greek and being infected. Anything and everything starts with a thought. Now, you have some guy all of a sudden find some tablets in the desert and decide to create a religion. And with time, that thought grows, because humans need grounding. They do not know. Either they don't have the mental dexterity, maybe they don't have the curiosity which allows them to expand their consciousness. Those humans are, the real word is subhumans. They're followers, so to speak. And they would even put their own family at risk. I mean, if you look at this cult leader, Reverend Jones, all these people.
Oh, yeah, Jim Jones, who led him to
Jim Jones,
Guyana. Yes.
So he was a Neptunian. Being a Neptunian means Neptune was extraordinarily strong in his UCI, in his unique celestial identity, in his cosmic makeup. Neptune is very strong. Now, Neptune rules confinement, church, synagogue, asylum, hospital, drugs, alcohol, island, exotic place. And he brought all these people somewhere in Guam or Guyana, somewhere out there. So they were very, very remote. And how did these people die? There's a signature of Neptune. Neptune was chemical and poisoning. He poisoned everybody with Kool-Aid.
Except him. So, he had, everybody had the poison. If they didn't drink it, they were injected it. But he himself had one of his followers shoot himself. That's right.
Let's talk about David Koresh. David Koresh was born with the tail of the dragon in Aries. Aries was Germany, war. Aries is ruled and controlled by Mars, the lord of aggressivity, and Mars is the color of blood, and it's red. That's why we call it the red planet. Mars ruled steel, and Mars, most of all, ruled fires. How did they end up? They end up on his tail in fires, because he was mentally disturbed or psychically poisoned by the reptilians. A Neptunian means he believes he is a reincarnation of Jesus. He talks to Mother Mary. Mother Teresa, for example, was also completely reptilian infested. In fact, wherever she was talking, because she was made and used by the Vatican to bring more people into Christianity, everywhere she goes, the poor old lady had to go through decontamination. She had to go through exorcism regularly She was complaining that the devil was trying to hit her life. These are facts. She was a 150% Neptunian, totally poisoned religiously by the reptilians. Look at people. Let's see some various level of infestation. People that are sport fanatic, they will not do anything on Sunday. They will not take their wife out in the wild, go fishing, take care of their dogs because there is a football match on TV. They're going to get their popcorn, they're going to get their beer, and they're going to go there. So they have been infected by the sport matrix. Now, I've got nothing against sport. I like boxing. I absolutely love boxing. But I would rather take my dogs to the park, okay? Or I will find the time after boxing to get out and then take my dog to the park and regenerate this vitamin D and the sun in nature and breathe some fresh air. Now, there are people that are totally consumed and are religiously poisoned. These are the ones that become the Bible verse talker. They cannot say a sentence without mentioning the Bible. Like this crazy lunatic who lives in the swamp who said, if we cannot convert the Muslims, let's kill them all. This big guy, this big beard, Neptunian lunatic who lives in the swamp, this famous guy. Now he lost his TV show because he's trying to convert the United States into his own religious values. I can point out so many famous people, Dr. G, that are totally and completely reptilian infected. Would it be even the atheist? The atheist, their religion is science. They do not believe in God because they do not understand the mechanics, the universal mechanics. To them, the answers will be and have always been provided by science because their UCI is extraordinarily rational. They were born with Mercury, the planet to regulate the communication process, the digesting of information in a very earthy, rational, low-vibrating sign, or earth sign like Taurus, Virgo, or Capricorn. These people are totally incapable of getting out of what science is, quoted, teaching, unquoted. Do that make sense again?
Absolutely. And, when you talked earlier about people being subhuman, that makes actually perfect sense because if they're not able to think for themselves and they're having their thoughts controlled by somebody else, or, when you also talked about Mother Teresa, I never even thought about the aspect that she was out there to promote people to join the Catholic Church through the Vatican. I'm sure you heard this recent story of this preacher who went to try to convert this indigenous group, this I don't know where,
and he got killed.
And got killed. Exactly. Yes.
First of all, he took a chance. He was totally religiously poisoned to the point of giving his life for his beliefs, so to speak, his religious beliefs. He didn't think that he could have had cold and kill the entire indigenous population there because the immune system is not prepared to certain bacteria. He didn't think of that. This is ridiculous. You have another person which is completely and entirely scientifically poisoned and was literally created by the scientific matrix, is Neil deGrasse. Neil deGrasse is...
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, he was created by the scientific matrix, by NASA, so to speak, as much as Scientology has his own TV show right now to recruit more people to follow them in their cults. Neil deGrasse, with his endless television show about the cosmos and about what the planet all about, he's doing the recruiting, so to speak, and it's very, very dangerous because now those children are not allowed to bypass whatever conditionment, indoctrination, or brainwashing they're being imposed with. It's very serious. It's absolutely very serious to for people to understand that God created the stars not for NASA or those geologists or astrophysicists to play with or to send a little robot on Mars. Okay, and you know my philosophy. Mother Earth is depleting real fast. I mean, she's being poisoned to the point where we will not be able to live on the back if we keep messing up. So why spending billions and trillions of dollars to mess around outside of our solar system when the scientists themselves do not understand the spiritual values of our own solar system? And they want to dig into other planets and the galactic, the Milky Way. They want to deal with dark matter, but they have no clue what it is. And they're the first one to tell you we don't know what dark matter is all about. There is those stars. Okay, I said it again, okay, because I said it before. As you know, repetition is a must. Because I'm teaching, and directly I'm teaching your audience to understand that the stars are a little bit more than dead rock hanging out there for the sake of beauty. Now, science will tell you again, their composition, their distance, maybe because one day we're going to leave all there. No. There is much more to the celestial design imposed by God himself. And sudden enough, Jesus' cosmic ministry was manipulated by the reptilians to turn all that into man's religious folly. The result is plain to see: chaos, discord, war, depression, greed. Everything that surrounds you is a sure representation that the reptilians are winning the battle. And then, here is Dr. Turi, here is Dr. G. Is Joe Montalvo is going to have me on his show very soon. Jeffrey Pritchett, my friend who had me on the show last week, and all the radio and TV hosts that I had, but it's nothing compared to where I should be in terms of offering this type of critical information to society. They need to understand that God never came down with no books. The entire religious ministry of Jesus has been manipulated and changes by the reptilians, who geographically have cursed every single human being to be indoctrinated at birth by a very specific doctrine. And that's what I'm trying to say. Doesn't matter where you were born. Doesn't matter where you were born on. Go ahead.
I was just saying, when you mentioned Neil deGrasse Tyson and actually a lot of scientists, astrophysicists, and people of that caliber are atheists. If they cannot find the meaning in front of them, they don't believe that something else exists. Like you were saying, they'll tell you what the composition of the stars are, or the temperature, things like that. But they, like you said, they pretty much sometimes label them as dead rocks in the solar system, not in the solar system, in the universe, which is clearly more than that, because our sun is a star.
Exactly, especially when I'm able to give you dates, specific dates for earthquakes, and explaining the energy and translating the energy like Nostradamus used to do with quatrain and very obvious keywords. The scientific community has to kind of wake up and realize that what cannot be seen or touched doesn't mean it's not true. Plus, they have also to really, really honor the word science and start to investigate and realize that without astrology, there would be no astronomy. In fact, astronomy is a byproduct of astrology, which is something that every disappeared civilization used. The Sumerian clay tablets were used by early scientists again to predict the time of an eclipse. Okay, but this is not taught in their schools. No, as soon as they hear the word astrology, oh bullshit. Sorry, my friends. And then when you say that to a religious fanatic, oh, you're gonna go to hell. Then that's it. You've lost these people. These people who could have gained so much by being challenged by somebody who knows better. In fact, I know better than every single, and I'm not saying this in an egotistical way, but I guarantee, as it stands now, I know more about the stars than Mr. Disgrace, who was caught messing around with some ladies, which is a pothead also. I know more about the stars than every single geologist and gemologist and astrophysicist combined together. Because none of these guys will come to your show and say, be prepared for an earthquake next week because the stars said so. They're going to say, oh, well, you know what, Dr. Turi, 6.0 and 6.3 happen every 2 or 3 days. No, it does not.
Not that
okay?
big. No,
it happens.
That's true.
No, especially earthquake at 7.3. And again, I'm asking your audience, go to drturi.com, very simple. And then you use that mouse and you click to earthquake predictions. You're going to have so many proof. And you're going to read the email exchange sent to the seismologist in Pasadena, USGS, and NASA. You even have a NASA student says, oh my gosh, Dr. Turi, you got that one knocked on the head. How can you do that? But when I say to these people, let's work together. Let's put your educated pride aside. Let's work together because as it stands now, I'm doing better than you do. At least I have a perfect timing. I don't have the location because I don't know the activity of the faults. I don't have the very sophisticated electronic equipment. You know, by the time that little needle moves in Los Angeles and you're going to have a 7.5 or 8.2, and it'll be a little bit too late, okay? And that earthquake may very well be on the date I just gave you. God, pray God that I am wrong. Pray God that I'm wrong. Yeah. But the future has always been my utmost faithful witness. I'm giving you, I repeat those dates just for the sake of it, and in case of some of your listeners, of course, didn't hear me. December 19th, secret, sex, crazy people killing each other. The police will make the news, the FBI, the CIA, of course, Russia. There is a lot of things that are hidden that are going to come to the light. And that's going to be a wake-up call for some people, and some famous people are going to go. Okay, that's the key word of tonight. December 24th, that's where I worry about earthquakes. That's going to be the beginning of the end of important phases of life, not only at the universal level, but also at the personal level. This is why if you can spend $10, go to my website and look for that area that says store, and then go click on store and click on ebook and spend the $10 and click on your sign. And you're going to see if my prediction works for you at a personal level or not at the end of the year. And I can already tell you, they'll work. And the trick there is that you're going to be like everybody else. At the end of the year, you're going to order 2020 Nostradamus Dragon Forecast. That's how it works with me. I'm real.
You know, we have a little over 10 minutes, and I still want to plug in more through your store about your talismans. But before we get that, there's something that I've been meaning to ask you that's coming up very soon. And I want to ask you what the importance of it in the astrology-wise, the solstice, the winter solstice is coming up. What do you see happening that day, or is that day of filled with more positive energy or more negative energy? How would you describe what people should do or people should feel? I mean, I guess it's kind of hard to predict how you feel, but you could only, try to do something, and it's the best you can do.
Right. Well, the solstice has to happen at the universal level, and sometimes triggered by a cosmic event. But most of all, it will happen on a very specific constellation that will touch you directly on a very specific sign. But I would be more concerned with the comet. There is a comet coming up. And what you're going to do, again, go to my website, drturi.com, and click on that comet that will go by the Earth. And this is a very powerful omen, and I made prediction about that comet. During the old day, anytime you have a cosmic event or a comet, something dramatic has, and will always take place. That's why I gave you those dates, because those dates are directly in reference to that comet. Now, if you want to read all the details, again, go and click on the link, okay? And above this, below this link, there is another one where I explain President Trump, his cosmic legacy and how it curses the world. Some people are not audible. They tend to digest information when they read. That's why I'll always, when I do a radio show, put a couple links on my website and direct the people to go and read so that they can appreciate and have everything written down. So they can copy it, they can print it, or if they forget the date, it's all there. What I'm trying to say is any cosmic event is not an accident. That comet is an omen of incredible things that are going to be taking place on the date I gave you. And again, I don't want the FBI to knock at my door, so I got to stay objective. I've got to use the quatrain as Nostradamus used to do, and those very, very obvious keywords. And it's all in this article about the comet on my website.
And
now, another thing I'd like to do.
We do have your website in your bio on my website too. So everybody who's looking at it, again, it's drturi.com. And like I said, it is in your biography. But go ahead with what you were saying, Dr. Turi.
Yeah, I'd like to make an offer to your audience. Not my readings are very expensive. I understand that not everybody has $700 to throw at me. It's a lot of money, and I keep this price for years. I'm busy, believe me. But I want to offer those who cannot spend $700 on me the opportunity to get a $700 consultation on Skype with me and pay only $300. Okay? So as long as anybody from your show mention, hey, I am from Dr. G's show, you'll throw this at the end of your show that you will give me a personal Skype reading, which is going to be, and I would strongly recommend you taped. Find a way to tape this reading, because the teaching that I have for you, the prediction that I have for you at a personal level cannot be wasted. You got to have my words crystallized into your cell phone so you can listen to a conversation or meeting afterwards. So I'm offering this. Just mention you are from the Dr. G show, and I will give you that Skype $700 reading for $300. You just have to remind me.
That's actually more than half off. And so, yeah, like you said, everybody, and they just reach out through your website and mention Dr. J, like you said, to get that extra discount. And these days, the new version of Skype does have a recorder, and depending on what you're using. If you're using a laptop or a desktop, well, you might not have the newest version. But I do know the newest versions have a recorder built into them, and that way people can receive what they said. Now we still have over 7 minutes left, Dr. Turi, and I wanted to go back to something you said about Koresh and Jim Jones. One other person or group of people that comes to mind is the Heaven's Gate cult. And the reason why this was triggered to me was because you mentioned the comet, right? And they
my God.
Yeah, they committed suicide.
Oh my God.
After that comet. They said that there was a UFO trailing it, and then they all disappeared. And that happened to be in 1997, right after the Phoenix Lights. So did you... But obviously, I would think that person was also looking into his eyes. That I don't know the leader's name, but his eyes just tell us all.
Dr. G, let me bring you back to that very night. A week and a half before that, I was on a radio show, okay? And you can Google Heaven's Gate or Dr. Turi show, and you can read that. I was with this guy which was extraordinarily skeptical. And I said to him, next week, you're going to have people that are going to commit suicide. You're going to have people that are totally out of order, and it'd be involving UFOs. Now, listen to this. I was driving through Rancho Santa Fe, because that's where it happened, in Rancho Santa Fe. Do you remember in California?
Yes. That's right.
Okay. I was driving through Rancho Santa Fe with my wife, and I could see the helicopter flying. And my wife says, oh, my gosh, what's going on? I said, probably my predictions somebody involved in the police and drama. Pretty much the energy that's coming up on December 19th, the type of things involving suicide and crazy people. And I, at the same time, get a call from the guy that was doing the radio show. He was waiting for me in Carlsbad. He was waiting for me and his wife. And he was saying, "Oh my gosh, Dr. Turi, remember the prediction that you made about UFO and crazy people committing suicide? I'm watching it on television. It's happening right now in Rancho Santa Fe." I said, "I know. I was driving through Rancho Santa Fe to meet you at the restaurant." Sad enough, I cannot remember the name of this radio host, but I'll make sure to put it in one of my next newsletter. But if you Google Rancho Santa Fe suicide, Dr. Turi, you should have everything. So what happened with Heaven's Gate? Obviously, this guy was totally and completely reptilian poisoned, to the point where, as a cult leader, again, he led people to commit suicide, but he was reptilian infected. Now, if I said to you, I'm going to make you a talisman, for example, to attract extraterrestrial, okay? Well, be sure those talismans are designed not to attract the reptilians, but the draconics. But that's because I know a little bit more about the energy that it takes to make a worthwhile talisman that attracts this Uranian, futuristic, original, progressive, extraordinary, even divine energy. And that cosmic energy can be captivated in a talisman, not only to attract UFOs, but for your health, to attract love, to attract more life, to attract money. Anything that's missing on your UCI or your unique celestial identity, I can already see in your chart the strengths and the weaknesses of all your planets. And those that are responsible for making your life misery, I can counteract it. And again, asking, for example, if you ask me to make a talisman, for example, okay, don't expect, you're not buying a sack of potatoes, okay? You're buying a talisman, which means you might have to wait. You might have to wait 1, 2, 3 weeks, 1, 2, 3 months, depending on your request. You have to wait until those energy lined up above your head so I can captivate it and crystallize them into the talisman. It's an art, and astrology is an art. And that's what people say, Dr. Turi, you're the master. And then, I take this as a compliment,
We got just a couple minutes left. Speaking of the talismans, I want you to talk about the few you have for sale on your site. And like you said, they're custom made. And one of the more popular ones that people have been asking about is the one that actually is to contact extraterrestrials. And just like you said earlier, people have to wait for it to be the proper time for you to get that energy into that crystal form. Right. Well, let's talk about what other talismans you have to offer on your website before we end.
Everything, Dr. G, everything that you buy, your car, your computer, your watch, your pair of shoes, becomes a talisman. The only thing is who made this talisman, who made that product, and when. You get a pair of shoes, let's say after the full moon, when the tail of the dragon is against you, and you possess during those cosmic energy, you're going to awaken, you're going to activate this negative cosmic fluid. Next thing you know, those shoes are going to take you to the wrong place, to the wrong people. I'm not joking. In fact, I have a little video. Just Google Dr. Turi Talisman, YouTube, and I explain so much, and I show the tools that I use to make a talisman. You know what? Charlemagne is a French king. Had talismans. He had to ask the top astrologers of his time to make talisman for him to be successful in his battles. Napoleon had a talisman. And God knows what. Hitler had a talisman. That cross that he used, that is a talisman. That is a very symbolic, mystical piece of artwork. If you look at the history behind la croix gammée, as we say in French, okay? Anything, absolutely anything that you buy becomes a talisman. So if you buy during positive, progressive cosmic winds, your investment will pay off and you'll be safe. Or the same car that you buy in a negative time might kill you. This is not a joke. There is no accident, only cosmic circumstances at work that is not yet understood by science and obviously an oblivious society which is indoctrinated in religion or science. And that's where we're at, Dr. G. This is where we're at. And by giving me a voice on your radio show, you are also creating an energy that will have a follow-up. There is no end, because when I first started doing that show with you, the cosmic energy was very progressive. And then I know I will be in the show again. I don't know when, but I know I will, because it's part of the cosmic, because you're musicians.
You absolutely will, Dr. Turi. And the greatest part about you is we could start a show with one way and the show will grow a life of its own. We are out of time. Real quick, I do want to plug in your website again, drturi.com, drturi.com. It is on my website under Dr. Turi's bio. Again, the website, drjradiolive.com. The people I also want to thank, of course, are the station managers who are also audio engineers, Katie and Daryl Neely. We also have the station owner for Late Night in the Midlands, Michael Vara. And Black Swamp Digital Radio, we have Wise Frog. That's for you, Paul, out there. And in the UK, I want to thank Deprogrammed Radio. Also on my team, we have the social media manager, Pam Vrettenberg, and also my editor, Adam Keene, who goes by Adariki Studios. And more importantly, the people I want to thank are you, the listeners. Remember, folks, it's all about you. Take this information, and if you're trying to get to disclosure, or if you're trying to learn something, or these prophecies, this is very important. If you recall from the last time you heard Dr. Louis Turi on this show, then you'd know exactly what you were waiting to happen and what did happen. Those two dates, again, that he mentioned are December 19th and December 24th. So please pay attention to those, because next time I bring him on, we're going to talk about those again and so much more. His website is filled with so much amazing knowledge, and that's what I want to thank you all for. Also, everything about the show, I tell this to you every time, is the name of it, Dr. J Radio Live. That is at DRJ Radio Live. Create a minds.com account. It's better than Facebook. It's open source, and it pays you in cryptocurrency as well. There's also Patreon. We have a new Patreon page. BitTube is another thing, a crypto YouTube type site. Facebook, Twitter, Flickr, Tumblr, Pinterest, anything you could think of. It's at DRJ Radio Live. And once again, I want to thank my guest for the night, Dr. Louis Turi, for joining us again. And like he said, we do have that cosmic connection where he will be back. With that being said, folks, you have a great night. Those of you in the UK and in the EU, have a good morning. And I am officially signing off.